30 seconds and counting.
Aye.
Astronauts reported.
Check, test, 1, 2, 3, check, 1, 2, 3. Hi, it's Loren, and welcome to my astrology channel, Venusian Waters. I am here to talk to you today about Mars in the sign of Leo squaring Uranus in the sign of Taurus. That perfects tomorrow, June the 14th, 2025. So why this is important? Because it promises disruption in a already crumbling, unraveling world. So it's important to track what is happening with this aspect to see how things further develop and expand in shocking, surprising, and more than not disruptive ways. But before I get all the way into it, I want to remind you that I study astrology from a real soul-centered way. Not that there's not real out there. I'm just finding my words. But I say this because I recognize that astrology is the study of the divine everywhere, all places, in everything, all the time. And I'm really thankful for that understanding because it lets me recognize that I'm essentially tracking the archetype given to us by the zodiac. That furthermore is the study and the tracking and the understanding of light, weaved in this amazing tapestry that we call creation. And because there are so many layers to that are infinitely unfolding, I believe that a co-learning space is the best space for me and perhaps for you to study and learn about astrology while also being in community, also getting to have our voice centered around your unique experience and unpacking that with like-minded folk to really deepen our understanding of astrology in the astrology as it's happening, to really build our strength and of course our spiritual confidence as we together move and also transmute new waves of light frequencies in an evolving, emerging world while straddling one that's also crumbling. I know I go deep, but that's me. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Also, please comment below if you're interested in this co-learning space, and I will send you more details. As well, if you like this video and it's helpful to you and maybe helpful to someone you know, please share it with your friends, your family, anyone that you think would really benefit from the information that I'm sharing. And of course, hit the notification bell so that way you can be notified when my next video comes out, which hopefully is much sooner than this one. Okay, with that, let's get into it. Uranus is squaring Mars. It perfects June 14th and goes until June 17th, moving from 28 degrees of Mars and Taurus to then 29 degrees of Mars and Taurus, and then finally separating on June 17th when Mars does go into the sign of Virgo. Also on June 14th, the moon will be in Aquarius, which actually is ruled by Uranus. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. And so this is really interesting. Uranus is not comfortable in Taurus because Taurus is a fixed sign like Aquarius, but Taurus does not like change. It takes its time, does very deliberate, methodical steps in the direction of its goals, its aims, and doesn't waver from those day-to-day routines in terms of its direction. So it's very fixed in what it desires and the actions that it takes to achieve what it desires in a very slow and efficient way. In fact, Taurus is so steady that it gets the rap for hating change and being quite resistant and dogmatic in terms of really digging its heels in when there is a call to switch things up. And this doesn't mean that a Taurus cannot necessarily be a part of change or even facilitate it. It's just not the thing it would choose to do. But of course, to maintain its integrity in the direction that it sees for itself, perhaps it will change to, again, make its way to what it wants. Hence, we're still seeing the fixed character in terms of even facilitating the possibility and the capacity for change. It's my intention just to show the difference between the Taurus archetype versus the Aquarius archetype, which is like all about shaking things up, you know, changing it up, even though Aquarius is still a fixed sign like Taurus, meaning that there are elements of Aquarius that are just not up for discussion. Some of which include Aquarius does not want to be told it has to change in terms of not being authentic to oneself. Aquarius will accept every archetype under the sun. The one thing will not accept, however, is critique on the way in which it shows up in its archetype, to be open to difference and, in fact, to relish in being different from everybody else. So the moment you tell Aquarius to conform, convert, you have now initiated and activated the very fierce stubbornness that you will find in Taurus, in fact, in Aquarius. So Uranus is a modern ruler of Aquarius that co-rules a sign with Saturn, the ancient ruler. So we're also seeing this seriousness that's also about Aquarius, but connected to the way in which it agrees to show up among collective social groups, right? Also related to its higher visions and dreams, and sometimes thought processes and/or the values, right, that one believes in that inform the worldview, right? So sometimes Aquarius can have such an eclectic, but yet even eccentric preference, hobbies, way of being and showing up, and therefore seeing and orienting to the world that can be fixed in terms of Aquarius not being willing to move from their position of how they see the world, whether it's a place that's unjust and should be fair to everybody, and or the way it sees systems and the way that those systems should show up to support people rather than to oppress them. So Aquarius is also associated with things such as freedom, also the future, right? And therefore timelines. And so sometimes you can go really further with Aquarius energy to speak to dimensions and the way that Aquarius likes to dive deep in this idea of dimensions by way of, again, systems and the multifaceted ways that a person can show up. And again, thinking about timelines, sometimes Aquarius likes, the 1800s and has a fascination with that time of being in perhaps culture and wanting to channel that into the here and now. Aquarius can also be considered the time traveler because of its capacity to detach, but detach in a way in which its nervous system is so sensitive that it can be in multiple places at once that may not actually be the place where the Aquarius's actual physical body is. And so there are lots of ways that can be described. Dissociation, I've used the word detachment, but in a more nuanced way, time travel, when you consider the capacity to dream a dream that can take you so far away from where you actually are, but yet allows you to touch something that's real. Sometimes we call this astral projection, but when you do it also with your eyes wide open, what do we call that? If we're moving away from simply and/or only or exclusively like mental health language, we're moving into domain around the quantum realm and quantum physics that we don't often talk about with Aquarius, but it's necessary because then it helps us to better understand the next sign over when we complete the archetype of Aquarius, moving into Pisces, where we actually go into that quiet space, the stillness beyond the veil, right? And so we're seeing the connection between timeline shifting in Aquarius that also leads us further into a complete surrender with all that is in the sign of Pisces. And so Aquarius is the archetype that we most associate with the energy of Uranus shaking things up. Because can you imagine someone walking by you with all that Aquarius lovely energy, just like letting you know that your reality is just one and not completely real? Like you would be like, what? You would be perhaps unsettled at minimum, right? And so that's a lot like the larger Uranus energy that rules Aquarius and can be electrifying to our systems, very much how you can see Aquarius energy show up as like an electrical wire that, seems very erratic at times and sometimes very grounded. Like, don't get me wrong, there are very deeply grounded Aquarius people out there, right? It's all about how the energy is expressed, but that's just it. You never know what you're going to get, which is the fun with Aquarius. And so with Uranus now, in the sign of Taurus, It's doing all that Aquarian elements or themes or behaviors associated with the Aquarius zodiac that very much is informed by Uranus's pathway and larger purpose in the universe to shake things up. And so Uranus is shaking things up where you have Taurus in your sky. Okay. And so I talked about how the moon is now in Aquarius, is modernly ruled by Uranus, making a T-square now to Mars in Leo. You know, our heart, our ego as it relates to our heart, therefore needing to serve ourselves and our desires because it makes us feel alive and happy and well. Even if it's playful, but it can get really like bombastic. You know, it can get loud. It can get like prideful. So you have to like be mindful because, you know, both the lovely higher octave qualities of Mars and Leo are going to be activated with this Uranus square. In addition to activating this T square now to the moon in Aquarius, particularly on June 14th, which we will still feel on June 15th. And so the moon is our emotional body, but in the sign of Aquarius, we're feeling more detached, but we may feel more dependent on our social groups, on our friends, on, you know, really being able to anchor in our hopes and our dreams in the present moment and or perhaps detach from the present moment to be in the space where our dreams and our visions for the future are held. Okay. And that's gonna rub up or, you know, maybe slam against, yeah, more aggressive words, action-oriented words. Slam against Mars doing a lot of things, needing to be seen and take action to till the ground, sever what is not serving its sense of specialness, its pride, its ego in terms of what it wants to create and or what it has already created that's showing up with even the dance in which it uses to sever whatever is in its way. And that's going to be specific to where you have Mars in your natal chart as well. This moon in Aquarius is also feeling this erratic shift and jolt from Uranus and Taurus, where there is some fixed quality that is not allowing Aquarius to feel, well, like themselves or to be themselves, right? So even though Aquarius can jive and dance, you know, perhaps better than the best of us with that Uranian energy, with the moon in Aquarius, it's more like Aquarius's comfort in being with its friends and or, you know, being able to be detached in the realm of its imagination, touching the future and where their dreams are nicely held, right? There's some shakeup there where they're not being left to hold that tender place, even though it may not seem tender as a Cancerian sense, even though for Aquarius, it's still tender because there's a sensitivity to those dreams that very much impact their nervous system as much as, you know, loud music for a baby who's trying to go to sleep. It can be very startling and jolting. And because of that, we're having to now contend with this Mars Uranus energy on the sensitive places where we collectively identify as a group, as a society, as people that deserve to take up space and or where there is woundedness where we have been prevented from taking up space. And a lot of times, particularly in the evolutionary tradition of astrology, we see Aquarius as also embodying our traumas and the wounded places, right? And so again, this flows nicely when we think about the archetype of Pisces being connected to the people who are considered less than, those typically at the bottom of a society. You know, in the ancient times, that may have been someone with leprosy, you know, someone seen as not as valuable, not belonging, therefore outcasted. And Aquarius is similar. It's bringing us to that trajectory in terms of the underdog, you know, perhaps the context and the social hierarchies that facilitated this further exclusion and outcasting of particular bodies from that society. That is big Aquarius energy. And also, of course, Prometheus, who stole water, fire from the gods to give to people to allow them to live, to allow them to have the sweetness of life, of warmth. And so we're seeing this hero archetype also embodied in the archetype of Aquarius that, again, is having some challenges based on disruptions with the things we need for our basic ability to survive and do so in a way where we are at peace, where we feel safe, where we feel like we are in a material environment of abundance. Taurus is about a sensual life, dare I say, sweet. Okay? That is important to Taurus. Sweetness, sensuality, foremost through the experience of being in a body is our first earth sign. Okay. So now we're seeing this shakeup from sweet Uranus in the sign of sweetness, and maybe not so sweet Uranus, even though it's my intention to say that these planets, their movements, their aspects that sometimes may be more loud and bombastic than others are not happening to us, but they're happening for us on a cosmic scale that is largely sacred, if not all sacred. Let's not even put largely, that is all sacred. And yes, this is not to excuse bad things that happen, but it is to give us the opportunity with an invitation to see them as having a deeper meaning, one that does not erase our lives and our pain, nor does it erase or can it erase our joy and the way that we have showed up here to evolve these archetypes through our being, foremost through the ability to transmute light frequency. Hence, goes back to my earlier introduction, the study of light. Okay, so T square, June 15th, perhaps lots of protests that are already happening all over the world, particularly in Paris, France, the United States of America, and even in Canada and other places around the world. I don't know all of them, but I know there's a lot. Also, Iran, right? Palestine, Israel. There's so much tension, war, unrest globally, speaking also to a world that is unraveling, right? And we're seeing how it's doing so through the different modalities foremost entrusted into global power, right? And as a collective, with Jupiter now in the sign of Cancer, it is amplifying the transits of the moon, okay? And it's doing so particularly through the rulership now associated with the moon. And it's no surprise or coincidence that the moon going to the sign of Aquarius is just when the Mars Uranus square perfects, while Jupiter is newly into the sign of Cancer. And so there's also this really interesting backdrop of Venus in this Mars square Uranus, as Venus is also in the sign of Taurus, where she is very comfortable because Venus rules Taurus. We call this domicile. And we have prior or building up to the perfected Mars Uranus square on the 14th of June, we're having the moon in Aquarius square Venus in Aquarius. And this is usually a placement that feels good. You know, it's a Mars aspect in which it creates a tension, but a tension between power relating pleasure, maybe people dancing at protests and having a really good time initially, you know, having that in the liminal space. And then what transpires is a real big bomb, boom, something goes off that is really the culmination of that Mars square Uranus aspect. And so it's really interesting because it tells me that there might be some deeper connections that are made and or harmonized between very fixed square energies that seem very different, Aquarius versus Taurus, that find a place of harmony that then questions the way that force is used, Mars and Leo, that border, if not are outright arrogant, prideful, in shadow as it's now facing up or facing off with Uranus in Taurus. And again, it may even show mishandling of resources, definitely mishandling of public trust. Like that is a given. And for different countries, that's going to look differently because each country also has a natal chart in which this energy is formally expressed. And so again, I want to urge you to know your natal chart and be able to start tracking where these aspects are showing up for you in your life. Okay. So now we're going to go into the all signs portion of this video. Hi, Aries. So this Mars square Uranus in the sign of Leo and Taurus is happening in your fifth house to your second house. And so your second house is a house of how you earn income, how you value yourself. Also, the things that you may eat. Sometimes it's also associated with your family. And so there's a shakeup happening here with the Mars and Leo in your fifth house. So maybe Mars is connected to one of your children, something ending for them and or a conflict with them that has a direct connection to your resources that may bring you greater resources in a surprising, shocking way, but also may cost you something or may tether you to an expense you didn't see coming, right? What happens here is a surprise, but what is certain is that it's a shakeup. You don't see it coming. And because it's around your resources, it could really stir them up and bring you something or bring you a new way of earning income or thinking about what you already have and possess and or asking you to perhaps spend more for something related to, again, your children. This also includes your romantic partners or lovers because the fifth house rules over romance. This could also be around maybe one of your creative activities that now needs more money because there's a huge opportunity and or something was cut away where competition was cut away and now you have the ability to, go full in on a particular software or something that you can own that really supports you having a greater edge in the marketplace where your creative designs or projects are flourishing and or are activated. So for you, Aries, again, this is really important because Mars is your chart ruler. So wherever Mars is going right now in the sign of Leo in your fifth house says that that is the focus of your life. You are focused on your kids. You are focused on what you create. You're focused on your entrepreneurship. You're focused on your lovers and dating and or perhaps breaking up with lovers and or creating boundaries with them to maybe move you to a deeper sense of connection because you're already being called to be more serious about who you are by foremost taking yourself seriously and being more connected to the parts of this experience that exist beyond the veil and sometimes are hard to put into words, but you feel it very viscerally, like on your actual body, and therefore are probably having to be more intentional about how you take care of your body and who you let into your space. That includes, for most, your romantic partners who you may be doing the do with, right? And so this is all going to inform what is taking place for you in terms of where you're creating boundaries, where you're also needing to check yourself, whether those boundaries are actually helping and or hurting based on whether they're coming from a place of your heart and or your ego. And because it's a fire sign, particularly Leo, you're always having to do a dance in that fifth house space between your heart and your need to be passionate and receive attention from others that support and drive your passion and or allow you to affirm it through the appreciation and the love of others. And so managing your ego versus your heart while still keeping yourself charged to move forward and still share yourself is always going to be something that is important for you, which in particular around this time, you're being asked to put your money where your true heart and your creativity and your inspiration lie as it relates to those people in that fifth house space. That is what I have for you, Aries. Sending you much love and good luck. Taurus, this is happening for you in your first house and of course your fourth house of family, of your living situation, of your home, maybe your ancestral inheritances, ancestral memories, ancestral land, maybe your mother, your parents. So this is about you have been having lots of activity in this fourth house space of your home. Maybe you have been clearing out your home. Maybe you've been doing renovations. Maybe you've been trying to aggressively get rid of your home and sell it and or sell one of your homes. And it's really asked you to show your home in like really lovely ways while also needing to manage, your expectation for how people receive you and maybe appreciate your home and appreciate how you are, like, how you've been in your home and exist in your home and created your home and again decorated versus also needing to just keep it real that this is still a home and it's a place of love and needing to manage like how people view your home versus how you view your home and how that may not land well for you, particularly because Uranus is in your first house of self, of identity, and of your actual body and how your body shows up in the spaces at first sight. And so this may be sensitive for you and or create or lend to a power struggle that you're going to be asked to pivot very quickly because you will basically be the storm, my dear Taurus. And of course, because you have Venus in your first house, also in the sign of Taurus, you're feeling really good. You're feeling lovely. And of course, when that Aquarius moon in that 10th house space, it's also showcasing you in a really brilliant light where you're feeling better to be on display. However, you're also now having to contend with your how you look in the world, right? How you're feeling about your place, your reputation, your social standing in the world as it relates to the activity taking place in that fourth house space. And again, you really amplifying it by maybe a change of your mood, right? And or just a need to do something that shocks and surprises other people, but also may run counter to what you're trying to do in that fourth house space. So this is a time for you to really figure out how you're going to choose to ground yourself, whether you're going to move forward being authentic to yourself and tell everybody else, it's my way or the highway, and or whether you're going to do your best to try to resolve and bring some compromise to what you're trying to do or the people who are also sharing your home with you and how others that you love and that you care about want to also share that space, take up space, while there is such an electric charge to what that may mean for you that may not sit so well in your body and or may trigger something that needs to be expressed. And again, allowing for the dust to settle so you can move forward, which of course you will be able to do once Mars moves into the sign of Virgo on the 17th of June, at which time you can start beginning to bring that resolve and see what is being created because you have a firm foundation. That is what I have for you, Taurus. Much love and good luck. Gemini. So this Mars square Uranus is happening in your uh, 12th house and also your third house. So of course your 12th house where you have Uranus, you've been having so much shakeups in terms of your psychology, maybe intuition. You may have a conversation with someone one day and the next day it's like this realization that can literally shake you and disrupt your nervous system. You've had to perhaps isolate more than you wanted just because you don't know what's going to come out of that space. And as a Gemini, communication is your mode of operandus, where you just need to express yourself in order to really process and transmute the energies that you have had show up in that 12th house space, whether you're alone or literally just, taking a walk down the street, something comes up in that psychological space that requires transmutation. However, now with Taurus in that space, you're feeling perhaps some greater ease, some sweetness. Maybe the shocks and surprises are because you're having more pleasure, when you go to sleep at night with your partner, or you're having more alone time with a partner that really allows you to go deeper in ways that are exciting and electrifying to your nervous system. So what's coming up for you in that first house space, as you, my Geminis, have to communicate, is actually, you know, poetry, sweet text messages, emails that also double as love letters, cute little memes, posting on social media that again allows you to express and create and transmute more sweetness from that 12th house space. But of course, when Uranus squares or perfects its square to Mars on the 14th and also into the 17th, you're seeing some shakeups in that third house space. So maybe a text message or a social media post talking about your boo thing, or talking about the pleasure you're feeling as you maybe deepen your meditation experience may not jive so well. Maybe something is received that creates a disruption to your immediate environment. That could be your immediate online community, or it can be your siblings, your neighbors, your activity in your local neighborhood. This can also include your aunts, your uncles, and your cousins. It can also include your transportation. Maybe you're texting and you're driving and you get pulled over. Things like that can really happen. And Mars also rules military and police, right? And like aggressive authority figures. And so it's a time to really take it easy. I know that there's so much happening, and right now it's sweet. So it really just pushes you to want to express. But with that Mars to square to Uranus in that 12th to third house space, it's going to be really important that you practice mindfulness, So yes, you need to communicate that is who you are. And because Mercury, your chart ruler, is in the sign of Cancer, there's more emotion connected to this, and also your resources. And so with that square from Mars to Uranus, it's asking you to set the house on fire, particularly in that third house space from the 12th house space, and you're not going to do that. Why? Because you're going to resource the sweetness of your meditation experiences. That also could be perhaps your experiences withdrawn with just your lover as well, but utilizing them to deepen into your body as you make a choice to engage in that third house space, whether it's aggressively and or breathing it out to let the intensity pass, right? Maybe it's like, I'm not going to send that message right now. I'm not going to post that right now. I'm going to make sure I'm going to put my phone down and leave that alone, right? If I'm driving, I'm going to drive extra slow because I'm feeling so raw, You maybe want to speed to get to your lover. There's so many ways that this energy can play out, but you're going to take your time. That is what I have for you, my dear Geminis. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I almost forgot. So yes, the T squared to Aquarius, that's building up to the perfection on June 14th. And so that's happening also in your ninth house. Yeah, I kind of said this. So this is about like you resourcing what is sweet in that 12th house space to make a different decision, one that is very much powered by higher beliefs, where you think about your friendship groups, how you belong to society. And this can also be resourced to support you to make a different decision, perhaps not text and drive, if that's the decision that's the impulse that comes out, not that you would do that intentionally. But again, resourcing because, you're really thinking about your purpose and purpose connected to your social groups and your groups of belonging and your higher vision and your hopes and your dreams with Aquarius in that ninth house space. So you're really going to want to take time because there's a lot going on for you in terms of the meaning of all of this. And maybe you want to participate in communities that you are a part of that are having this unrest and that you're feeling very deeply. And because you have Cancer ruling that second house space, you are someone who cares and nurtures your communities, whether that's, a part of how you understand your purpose and also the love and the passion that you have for your neighbors, for your siblings, for your cousins, for your neighbors and people you grew up with who feel like your brothers and sisters. Okay. There's gonna be a lot of intensity here. And you're really gonna want to pull back because it's gonna feel like it's just, erupting from your unconscious. So you're gonna want to use that sweetness from Venus to really resource, to breathe through it so you don't do anything that you regret. That's what I have for you, my Gemini friends. Good luck and much love. Cancer. So the Uranus Mars square is happening in your second house of resources, your income, how you generate activities to earn more income, the things that you already possess. Also, what you put in your mouth, what you ingest, and the things that truly feed your heart, because you have Leo in the second house where Mars is. And so perhaps you've been spending a lot of money and are having to really budget and cut out things that you do not need. That could be like, calling your insurance and making sure that your bundle is actually bundling and serving you rather than serving their bottom line, even though it's my intention that we have mutually beneficial bottom lines, but who knows? And then, of course, this is making a square to your groups of belonging, right? So your hopes and your dreams. Again, your insurance, maybe you have group insurance, I don't know, and you're making sure that you're getting the best rate, right? You have Venus in that 12th, sorry, in that 11th house space now. You also have Uranus. Uranus has been shaking it up. Your friends have been crazy. People who have traditionally been very stable, grounded forces of nature in your life and in the way that they show up and support you, support your dreams, support your projects, fund your dream adventures, have been still lovely. But sometimes there is like windfalls from having someone shows up in a very stable, structured, reliable way. And then there are times where people who have been stable, structured for many, many, many years, all of a sudden have gone batshit crazy and are just off the wall and just leave your life like that. And for you, Cancers, that can be heartbreaking because you love your friends, because they're your family. They allow you to know your value and what you're worth, even though it's about how they are people you just love. And who you love from a truly heart-centered way informs your self-concept. How you value yourself is how you value them, and also informs how you generate this sense of deeper appreciation to align yourself or magnetize greater resources to you. And so there is this beautiful tension that exists between your 11th and second house, because you have big signs there that square, but that also have led to dynamic sweetness in how you understand your sense of belonging, and also how that aligns up with your values that are very much about like deep, passionate, self-authentic expression where it's like all heart, lots of kisses, lots of hugs. And so the shakeup here may be you, again, cutting something out that no longer aligns with truly how your heart feels. And that also could lean towards some ego and some pride that you have to really check, because it's connected to, again, what you feel you have, what you feel you're worth, that may be undergoing some pressure from your friend groups that may not be appreciated because of how it's triggering you. Let's keep it 100, right? And then the moon in Aquarius moving through that 8th house of what you are receiving from others in a very deeply intimate, sometimes overwhelmingly uh, binding way that can literally unravel you one day, but also breathe life into you or back into you the next, because that 8th house space is also connected to life, death, life cycles, therefore regeneration, therefore the things that we inherit from others that can be something as tangible and mundane as a record collection, an insurance payout, or someone's characteristics that we then see ourselves embodying the more we connect deep with them and take them as ourselves. And so the moon is moving through this space and you're ruled by the moon, Cancer. So you're feeling such a deep resonance with what is happening in the groups that you're connected to, your social groups, also into larger groups that maybe you haven't thought about your connection in a particular way, but you know you're connected to, right? So if you're a woman, you're connected to women, and there's protests that are showing different women have experiences that are not honoring their sacred feminine, that are not honoring their safety and their right to exist and take up space. This may very much come into a dynamic, very erupting challenge with how you've been creating boundaries in what you understand as yourself, as why you're valuable, therefore what you value and what you have as a reflection of who you are, particularly as it relates to what you express, and therefore what you take into yourself to align with what you're able to express, and therefore what you're able to metabolize to be authentic to yourself, that very much comes and is rooted in your heart, even if sometimes it gets carried away in bombastic ego expression, right? We love a Leo, particularly a Mars and Leo. And here, there's some animosity and or incongruency with the people who you call your friends, the people who you are affiliated with in a very intentional, direct way. The people you're calling for a donation, or that you're calling because they're your friends. They're the ones who listen when you need someone to listen to. And so this shakeup may see a friend go, or may see something that you've held on to, and had as something you've treasured and valued as a part of your collection in assets in your portfolios. It could be something that you just have and treasure because it's something someone once gave to you and has unique significance that may be exiting your life at this time. And again, it's very much connected to something that can be very tangible, connect to your resources. So those that you have or you share with others, that can be a part of what is leaving and or what is coming in, right? The nature of Uranus really doesn't tell you which one it is, right? And with that 11th house space being activated, and with Uranus and both Venus moving there, this tells me there's a more likelihood for sweetness than not. So something could be coming in that you didn't see for the life of you, and that shakes up your friend group, maybe bringing someone in and may support and or affirm the changes that you have been making with Mars's transit through that second house, tilling the soil of what truly feeds your heart, what is truly an authentic expression of you, and lets you feel comfortable to be all of that and more, to bask in your appreciation with others, also recognition and or not, depending on like what they're doing. But again, it's supporting something coming in that is affirming that rather than not. This is what I have for you, dear Cancers. Sending you much love and good luck. Leo, so Mars is transiting your first house. So you're feeling this square from your first house to, of course, your 10th house of career, social standing, how you show up in the world. Also, this is where your reputation is. It's your worldly affairs. And so Uranus has been shaking things up for you like nobody's business. It's like feast and famine, Leo. And you like stability in that 10th house space. Like you are like the girl next door, even though you're here to shine bright. You're here to be unapologetically yourself. And sometimes that comes with a little bit of ego, if not a lot, but we still love you. And so with Mars in that first house space, you have been telling people your boundaries. You've also had to do so with greater intensity and fight because you now have Pluto in Aquarius in your 7th house space of one-to-one partners, your audience, your marketplace, your open enemies, contracts. They're more intense. They have this characteristic of like life or death, really pushing transformation where it's asking you to step out of your comfort zone every time you sign on that dotted line, Leo. No joke. And of course, with Moon ruling your 12th house space where Jupiter is, you're having some protection now, which is so lovely because I feel like you've needed it, especially with the challenges between like Pluto in that 7th house space to the planets that move through your 10th house. So when Pluto squared Venus, like love relationships or people seeing you in a favorable light came with intense challenges through partners and one-to-one dynamics where you had to transmute that to maintain your sense of peace and well-being, and like to allow yourself to maintain your receptivity to the sweetness that was showing up in that 10th house space as Venus went into it. Okay, you had to fight for your groundedness in pleasure, essentially, because people were trying to steal your joy. Literally, this is what that tells me. They were trying to steal it. And so with the moon now moving through that seventh house space, you're seeing those partners and their emotional dependency on you. You're seeing the way that it's connected to not only your friends and not only their connection to the collective and groups of belonging and higher visions for, you know, their dreams and your dreams that are aligned through now this partnership that is being unsettled by the changes that are showing up one day and also, collapsing things the other day with Uranus in that 10th house space. So for you, Leo, this Mars square Uranus is deeply personal and is impacting your sense of self, how you understand your identity in the world. It's also impacting how you feel in your body. You may have to go work out on June 14th until the 17th and be very active to push this energy through your body so that way you're not necessarily having power struggles with your one-to-one partners that are really, taking center stage for everyone to see. And that could potentially, color your reputation for some time. So you're really being asked to move that intensity. You're being asked to meet those challenges in these angular places to become not only that girl next door, boy next door in that 10th house space, but also to begin to truly understand the gifts that you inherited from your family space where Scorpio lives, because you're essentially transmuting this energy, or you're being asked to transmute it for a higher outcome that allows you to bring simplicity or hold simplicity, hold your sense of peace, while there are shakeups, particularly coming from what you are cutting away from how you've known yourself to be, from your self-concept that foremost is being brought to your attention through your relationship with others, particularly those who are one-to-one, whether it's an open enemy, again, your committed partnerships, a particular contract that you have, maybe that you also are having some challenges with as it's more intense than initially you thought it would be, that is also connected to your dreams or your visions or what you channeled from your psychic material with, again, the moon ruling that 12th house space. A lot of Leos are people who close their eyes and imagine and envision their life, particularly as it relates to their past and their childhood. There's something that lives in you that very much you carry forward as a signature of your imaginal world. And so this is being expanded because Jupiter's now in that 12th house space, but it is also helping you to truly confront what is being asked of you or what is showing up through your connection with others, and also what you're being asked to harmonize in the world around you while resourcing from, what you have inherited maybe from your mother, what is shifting, what is transforming now in you. And again, the work you're doing to clear those boundaries that very much is in direct competition with others. And so being mindful of that, being mindful of your mirror may help you to really resource grace to move through this very intense time with greater ease. That is what I have for you, Leo. Sending you much love and good luck. Virgo, so this is happening for you in your 9th house space where you have the lovely Taurus energy and Venus moving through that part of your chart. Also unexpected trips, unexpected aha moments, right? Understanding the nature of God in a tangible way in which you can hold the sensation of pleasure, because Taurus obviously rules that 9th house space. That is unfortunately coming to a square that is unfortunately and fortunately coming to a square with Mars moving through that 12th house space. So Mars has been cutting out patterns of behavior informed by psychological material, okay, that no longer serves you or that has been undoing and undermining you. This could have also looked like men, figures of authority, um, athletes, military people who may have been showing up as secret enemies. Okay. You may have also been doing a project that was deeply heart-centered, that really was a passion project, that needed a lot of work, that was essentially being done with you taking time out to just focus on that. So kind of cocooning in terms of putting all your energy into this project. And so there's a shakeup now with Mars in that 12th house space to the ninth house. So whatever work you've been doing, severing, initiating, is coming into direct conflict with perhaps a belief that you have that has been very, very strong, rigid, dogmatic, really buried there in your concept of the world and how people should get along, you know, in a very like normalized, common sense way, you know, that you may have seen as so necessary to having a good life. Like, it's like 1 + 1 = 2. However, there's a shock because it's not so black and white for you anymore. In fact, it's very gray, and it may come with not only a sense of surprise and shock, but almost restlessness, sleepless nights, just a real energy that you're wondering where it's coming from and may feel like you're like losing your ish, but you're not. It's really the deep psychological work and having Mars in that space that is asking you to take action in places where you tend to go to sleep. So you could be having literally more nightmares on this transit. And it's asking you to wake up to yourself in a very material way, in the way that you're able to connect pleasure to your greater sense of purpose in your life and create meaning in the world. With Venus also in Taurus, you may be having more opportunities to travel for pleasure. You may be connecting with women from foreign places who are inspiring you, who are helping you to feel more grounded, as you learn and explore ideas, explore literally different places abroad, as you explore principles connected to the law, or maybe you're having legal matters and there's more support from women in those matters that are showing up with tangible benefits and rewards. And of course, the moon in your sixth house in Aquarius is perhaps revealing health feeling uh, in limbo. Maybe you're kind of just like feeling a little bit off with so much of the unrest in the larger global context having direct implications for your day-to-day life, your day-to-day routines and work. Maybe you're someone who's not able to go to work because people are protesting, and you're having to find ways to mediate that while while dealing with very real bodily reactions, health issues that arise from those experiences, navigating those little challenges, not little, but those challenges and those crises that show up in your day-to-day work, in your day-to-day life. Also, maybe your pet is like someone you want to like love up on more, but you can't get home at the time you need to walk your pet feed your pet, something in terms of caring for them that again is being disrupted through this energy, and that you're having to really talk to God, talk to your higher self to just understand the why. So that way you're resolving this T square from your 12th house to the ninth and the sixth through creating greater peace and harmony in your inner world while having to deal with the disruption that you're experiencing in the outer world to be able to actually hold a frequency to integrate that dynamic again to resolve that T square as that energy passes, or then you will have Mars in your first house to, do the work, remove the parts of you that no longer serve, whether in relationship or just the relationship with yourself before others, that you're learning or that come to a head and a climax at this time of the perfected Uranus Mars square. That is what I have for you, my Virgo friend. Sending you much love and good luck. Uh, hmm. Hi, Libra. So this Mars square, Uranus, is taking place in your 11th house or from your 11th house of your hopes, dreams, your wishes, your dreams for the future. Again, your groups of belonging, groups you're affiliated with, your friends. And it's making a square to Uranus in your 8th house where you have deep sharing with others, where others share resources with you, resources that are tangible and or that are energetic, exist in this 8th house space. This is where you may also experience very deep crises that, again, shifts your life through asking you for deep transformation, deep healing, right? Shedding one skin to step into a fuller one of who you are being asked to be through what you're being made to endure and merge with. And that can get deep, but let's not go all the way there right now because I want to keep us focused. So Uranus has been shaking this space up since 2018. And essentially, this means that there could be some instability in resources that are shared with others, in how people have seen you or esteemed you and or not. And so right now, Venus, your chart ruler, is moving through the 8th house space. So people are more likely to share resources with you. And again, financial, energetic, people are more likely to support you, say nice things about you, and in ways that are deeply connected to how you made them feel. Okay, because Venus in Taurus, again, is about sensual pleasure in the body. And how we make each other feel, is about, yes, our heart space, but that's also about expression when we think about Leo. But in the sign of Taurus, it's about getting goosebumps on our bodies. It's that feeling. It's the butterflies in our tummy when someone lights you up inside, or when someone just gets it, and that sense of peace that your body just comes into like stillness and you just feel held in their presence. That is Taurus energy, and that's Venus in Taurus. And that's how it can show up, particularly in this deep place traditionally associated with more Scorpionic energy or Plutonic energy. And so that's the kind of merging in ways that allow others to feel seen and also safe enough to be held in their body to access the higher frequencies of the Taurus archetype. And so for you, my dear Libras, there is some tension that may actually be with people that you're affiliated with. Maybe your friends are, you know, having changes in your life that directly impact, what is being shared with you, right? Something as simple, or not simple necessarily, but something that could be a lot of activity with people you've been affiliated with, and having to clear that out, or not necessarily clear that out, but more dynamic activity more dynamic activities. So initiating action with groups of people that really shake something up in terms of how you're holding space with them to, as I mentioned before, you know, ground the energy, whether it's intense shakeups where people are like their minds are shifted, right? Because of something that you created, you expressed, because the moon is moving through your fifth house of creativity, of your children, of your beautiful lovers. Oh yeah, I'm a little bit in love. Your beautiful lovers. Also your businesses. Again, what you're sharing with the world from a truly authentic way that expresses who you are. And with Aquarius there, we know you're all kinds of uniqueness. Okay. And so with the moon moving through there, what you're creating is also perhaps connected to larger groups, to society, to humanity, to systems, to structures, to ideas and visions for the future, right? All those beautiful things that we talked about earlier connected to the Aquarius archetype. And so those things are having a direct impact on your friend groups, the people that you associate with, the people that you're affiliated with, people that you are in relationship with, that you are in a community contract with, okay? And that very much is therefore what connected to what you share with them and what they share with you. It could be something as simple as a morning meditation to actual resources, donations, or opportunities where, again, there's a flow of resources to you that you don't actually have to work for, but just because you are. And so there's a shakeup here. And because you are Venus, it tells me that you're holding space, whether through what you've created that lives in a particular place that others have access to, that reflects you, and that very much is, connected to this Uranus and Taurus energy, right? That foremost is about being a conduit for greater peace, greater ease, greater groundedness, where one can show up just to be. Okay. What else can I say for you, dear Libra? Uh, do, do, do. Yeah. This is what I have for you. Sending you much love and good luck. Okay, so Scorpio, you're having Mars in Leo in your 10th house, square Uranus in Taurus in your 7th. So this is about your partnerships, okay? Your partner may be spazzing out, my Scorpio friends, and your partner could be someone that you are in a committed relationship with, whether it's in business, it's for personal growth and love and expansion, whether it's someone you're in partnership with because you are beefing and you're about that life and you're committed to that beef and seeing it through. So this is where you're having Uranus show up, right? It could also be your audience, it could be your marketplace, it could be your clientele, right? So all those people, whether in the one-to-one dynamic that you are committed to them through, is having some shakeups. And with Venus there, it can be pleasant, to be quite honest, right? However, Mars in that 10th house space has been, you know, taking a lot of time for you, Scorpio, because you are Mars ruled like Aries. And so you have been cutting and pruning and severing in that 10th house space. You've been taking a lot of action, action after action after action. There could have been a lot of like pride, wounded ego here because Mars in Leo, even though Mars is your ruler, makes a square tense aspect to you. So the changes that you have perhaps felt that you had to make in response to someone trying you and trying your ability to shine bright, you know, may have just had you feeling a little weary, right? And just like having to really push. And of course, Mars in the 10th trines your sixth house where you have Aries. And of course, Chiron. I haven't really mentioned this for a lot of people, but I feel like for you, Scorpio, the push and the challenges to your sense of self from the 1st to the 10th and having this happen for you also angularly, is also connected to like healing. So you may have felt like I can do this, I have to do this. And it's not just about my career, it's about how I show up in my life day to day, and like my routine and what I need to do to survive, to be healthy. to really be about that life because, again, you're Mars ruled. And with Saturn now in your sixth house, you're being called to be more responsible for how you wield your Martian influence and energy and initiate action. And of course, with Uranus in that seventh house, your partners have been really sporadic. If you're not already like coupled or committed, you may have seen partners come in, come out. You may have just attracted like really unconventional people, even though with all of their eccentricity, they have been like stable people in your life, and or you've had partners that like were so conventional, so traditional, and you thought with they be forever, they never leave. All of a sudden something happened, they're gone. And it's like shocking because of like the characteristics and the characters that you usually attract. It almost like makes no sense. However, you're understanding it and you're not unfamiliar with eccentric characters because Aquarius rules your fourth house. So as the moon moves to this fourth house, you may be feeling more called to be inward. You may be at home. It is the weekend after all when this square perfects, right? And you may be connected to your friends, talking to the friends you talk to every single day because your friends are basically like your family, being four signs from your first, from Scorpio. And so there can be some like shocking news that you're hearing from your friends about what's happening in their lives that directly connects to partnerships, stir something up with partners, is, that bring something that you didn't know to your awareness that very much is challenging and or asking for a resolve between how you've been in the world, your reputation, maybe even your career is now having to respond, be accountable for this shakeup. And it's unnerving. It could even mean like having to, change homes in the future because what is shifting is asking for reorganization in terms of like your life because of those angular placements. It's from the seventh, it's asking for something to change in your home with partners or how partners are engaged in it or oriented to in that inner world and or in the actual home that you live within and or or how they connect to your family and or don't. And then also what you in the world have perhaps announced and committed to taking action on that again has a direct connection to how these spaces in your world are organized. Yeah, so you're doing a lot of work under this Uranus Mars transit. And with Jupiter in your ninth, it's also expanding your sense of faith in the world, in your life, in your sense of purpose. And so I feel that there's for you a sense that everything is going to be okay with the changes that are happening and that are being extracted in your home or that are also maybe expanding your home. Because again, the nature of Uranus, it may bring something or it may take something away and or do something that could be a combination of both that perhaps I don't have words for in this moment. And that is what I have for you, my Scorpio friends. Sending you much love and good luck. Sagittarius. So this Mars square Uranus is happening in your Leo ninth house and it's squaring your sixth house where you have Taurus and therefore Uranus moved to Taurus. And so this can look like a shakeup in your day-to-day routine, like literally, you know, the house is on fire. Okay, the house is not on fire. That is not what I want to say. Because it's more like, let's just say, you can't go to your dentist appointment or you can't go to the gym, which you do on a regular basis because gyms closed down, because they had a fire, because they were looting last night and a fire happened and then it spread to your gym. And so now you can't go to your gym. And it's like kind of like shocking because no one like is trying to like loot a gym, but it happened, right? And so this has shaken up your daily routine. So now you're going to figure out a different place to like work out in, right? And it feels like it's changing and upending beliefs you've had about the world and sometimes about the goodness of life because Mars is in Leo in that ninth house space. And in reverse, it could mean that something is being brought into the open in a really like intense, almost shocking way that perhaps restores your faith in life or shows you perhaps where you've been egoic and under the belief that you were just being authentically you and real and therefore like in your light and your love, but not so much. And so the shakeup that's happening in that sixth house space in your routine when you're seeing a clear demonstration that, oh, this is not what I thought it was, right? And it's not necessarily gonna be too detrimental, by which I mean Venus in that sixth house space. So there's sweetness that's also kind of showing up for you in that sixth house where what's happening day to day is feeling more supported by your neighbors, the people that live in proximity to you, the businesses, the community that live in proximity to you, also your siblings, your younger ones, your aunts and uncles, your cousins, your mode of transportation, even like text messages and emails just feel like they're being supported or they show up like unannounced and they're sweet and they bring sweetness to your day to day that make you realize that, oh my gosh, that's so nice. And it brought like a sense of stability and ease to your life and to your experience of the world around you. And so it's making you think or coming into a direct conflict with, hey, how you have been understanding yourself in terms of your purpose and where, again, like I said before, ego has been masquerading as authenticity, as raw self-expression that should show up and has a right to show up. And like, why shouldn't it be appreciated? I'm thinking that like Leo arrogance that can like also feel like it's coming from a good place until like it's checked, but ever so lovingly, so we don't lose the light, right? We don't want to shut the fire down. And so that Leo Mars from that ninth may actually come up against again the moon moving through the third house where things have been a little bit more intense and how you communicate is being more like scrutinized and or there's more demand for you to be clear about your language because you're seeing the impact on different communities that you may be connected to, but you may not be, but you may be if you're like a community over, and the importance for all of us to find ways to heal, and how you're seeing this in terms of that intensity and how it's asking you to expand more deeper into your heart around life purpose, around your ethic, or how you understand the ethic that underpins, your belief for our connection together as a humanity. And even beyond that. And so it's really bringing confrontation to how you show up day to day. And therefore, not also how you show up, but how you therefore go about addressing the challenges, the duties, your work that is required of you day to day. And ritualizing that, not only for the benefit of your individual pleasure, but for the pleasure of the people you share space with, whether it's your immediate community, home life, networks, aunts, uncles, cousins, or the larger world at large. And so this is deep for you because this is what's coming up. And it has a lot to do with Jupiter, your ruler, now in the eighth house, which is asking you to go deeper. How do you mother? How are you mothered? And mothering is not just related just to woman, even though the feminine is going to be really important here. How does that show up within you? How has that showed up in your world? And how do you receive? And how do you not? And how you do not receive also speaks, therefore, to how you may extract knowingly or unknowingly. And all those things are going to come up now in terms of a confrontation that's going to ask you to resolve with the material to really see it what it is for see it clearly for what it is, despite where there may have been some missteps or misunderstandings. Overall, it's a blessed transit that may bring something new into your day-to-day life that also harmonizes that sweetness in terms of the work you've been doing in that ninth house space or the work that needs to be done. Okay, that's what I have for you, Sagittarius. Sending you much love and good luck. Capricorn. So this is happening for you in your eighth house of what you share with others, where Mars is currently. And so you have been out here fundraising potentially for money from other people, you know, bringing your like light to them and shining your light bright. You may have like been collecting money to invest for others. That's another way that this eighth house Mars can show up. People don't talk about that enough, okay? Also, there may be actual initiation that you're taking to resolve matters related to inheritances, taxes, also things connected to estates, healing in terms of, you know, doing that deeper work between what is heart, what is ego, where's the fine balance, because you need both to really bring forth something spectacular that reaches people at multiple levels of being, but nevertheless calls them in. And so this is also what you're sharing, but then what is being shared with you that you may be transmuting through your ability to love, your ability to express yourself, your ability, therefore, to be yourself authentically. However, there's some issues showing up, and it's around what you're creating with the material that you are, severing, working through, moving through with others in that very deep, intimate space. So, you could also be having lots and lots and lots of pleasure here. You may be receiving, demanding, and it may be just this dance that you're engaging with. And again, it can be like the tangible resources where it's like money or it's body, it's really, or energy, because we extract energies from bodies, right? And finding the way that you can receive while you're also very charged at trying to create boundaries through being authentically you and shining your light. And that's in a direct conflict with your resources, what you own, what is yours versus what is others. The moon is moving through your second house. And so you're thinking about what you have, also how that relates to how you know yourself, what you value, why you may be valuable, where you may have woundedness around your sense of worth, right? Again, Aquarius does hold trauma. And there's been more intensity in that space with Pluto there, who was, saying to you, you have to transform this area of your life. And so it's how you receive, it's how you take things into your being from the groups that you're connected to, from your friends, from the parts of you that may not actually fit in, but are not meant to fit in, that are meant to be nourished and held and refined to exist in and of themselves and onto themselves as a community onto itself. And in that way, it has a space inherently within the larger community that is all that is. And so with the moon moving through this space, making a square now to Uranus in that fifth house, something you're creating, maybe your children, business speculations, things that you are looking at to invest in that, feel like, oh, there's an opportunity here and it's a sweet spot, but then are very high risk, very volatile, is coming into now conflict and almost like a divisive but aggressive conflict that requires attention in that eighth house space in terms of what people are giving to you because they believe in you, because they appreciate you, because they're attracted to you. And to me, this is screaming ethic. You're being called to be ethical. There might be some missteps that are being brought to the light, because Leo is still the light in Mars, even though it's in Mars in that eighth house space where it seems like the light is having to push through a lot of shadow material, particularly with other people, and where that, again, there could be blind spots because it's still an eighth house where, there's no boundaries there, but Mars is about creating boundaries. It's cutting things away that do not serve a particular idea of the ego expression that therefore requires a boundary to create a container for it to, align with the sense of authenticity, hence wholeness, hence its ability to therefore shine its light bright, where things don't often shine here. And so this dynamic T-square from the 8th to the 2nd to the 5th is about resources. It's about authentic expression, and it's asking for change in that 5th house space in terms of what you're creating or what you've created, and perhaps challenging that, right? And it's challenging that based on other people's ability to give to you and or not show up or give to you in the way that you have been creating space for with Mars in that 8th house. And so you're being asked to look at your values and how they shape and or limit that 7th house space. And with Jupiter now in that 7th house, there's more ease, there's more grace to do things differently. And this T-square is going to give you the information that you need to know exactly what you're being asked to do differently. And it has potential blessings for you in terms of maybe, maybe new creations, a new baby, a new pregnancy, a new creative venture, one that requires a different way to be nurtured to truly see the fruits that are being asked or want to come forward, particularly with Venus in its domicile, Taurus, in that 5th house, creating sweetness around creativity. And of course, you exalt Venus. So where she goes, you want to give greater attention to. And this is also maybe connected to your 4th house where Saturn now is, and that is your chart ruler. And Saturn is asking to be more serious about those partnerships and your container for partnership. And so what happens now in terms of the deeper sharing with the partners that you have established, you might see the fallout where things have not been aligned, as I mentioned before. And so the work, therefore, is to do the work to align. And again, Saturn is the ancient ruler of Aquarius, where the moon is. So that may be asking you then to have more of a focus on your responsibility to your partnerships in terms of how you're wielding the energy of Mars in that 8th house space in the sign of who you are authentically. Check your arrogance. So rather than sever what you think partnerships or deep merging, perhaps it's releasing something with Mars in merging with another that is asking for deeper intimacy, deeper authenticity that may trigger your pride. And that's being asked to be severed to honor what is being created sporadically that wants to come forth in that 5th house space. Okay. That's what I have for you, Capricorn. Sending you much love and good luck. Drink my tea. It's cold. It's not cold, but it's like not warm anymore. Just want to get my throat back. 2 more signs. Okay, Aquarius. So this is happening for you in your fourth house of family, home, your living situation, your parents, your mom, your ancestral land, ancestral memory that lives in your body. So sometimes it's associated with like your ego expression, like where you feel like where your defenses are, like, like not ego expression like the Leo, but more like not how you're shining, but how you respond when like something triggers you that may actually be more ancient than you realize, right? And the square is Mars in the seventh house of your one-to-one partnerships, your committed contracts, your open enemies, your audience, right? And people may have been trying you. I feel like when Mars goes through the seventh, like people just come out of the woodworks with aggression towards you. That they have so much to say. And because it's like opposing your first house where Pluto now is, it's like they're challenging your intensity. They're attracted to your intensity and they want to meet it and they want to fight and they want to go hard and they want to bring out the monster in you. That's how I feel like it. That's how I feel it's felt, that energy. They just come hard at you and it feels like, what is their problem? But there's something in you that they're sensing and they're tethering to, and they're just like poking at the energy and are reflecting the energy that you're carrying, even though you're just like seemingly being yourself and not doing anything that's out of the ordinary for you, but they're picking up on that vibration. And so they're doing a lot in the next few days. So I would stay home. But I feel like even if you stay home, it doesn't matter because it's triggering where you're at. It's triggering your inner world. It's triggering your home. It may be like literally, if you have roommates, someone is like having a fight with their partner, and then it has to do with you, and you're like, what? I didn't do anything, but they said you said this and blah, blah, blah. And then it's this whole thing that just escalates potentially in your home or around your family or around like people who like are like aligned with like your living situation that feel like I guess like your family, even though they may not be your blood, but usually like, But my point is it's just like it potentially goes from bad to worse. And that's just because like you have Pluto in your first house. Okay, you can't get rid of Pluto in your first. It's you. Okay, it's you. And the moon moving through your first house means that one, you're emotionally more expressive. Whether those emotions are good or bad, we don't know, but you're emotionally more expressive. People are reading emotions from your energy. And what we know for a fact is that those emotions are heightened and intensified because you have Pluto also in that fourth house space. And then whatever's in that fourth house space, so it lives in the ancestral memory, like I mentioned before, the triggers that live in you, like in your DNA, the woundedness is being triggered and it's shaking up your fourth house space, whether it's internal implosion and or explosion outwardly to the people you live with and that are in your inner circle of who like you have made a life with. And then of course it's being amplified, if not outright, started by Mars in that seventh house space. So people feel like they're trying you. And again, I told you, you have this intensity that people are drawn to. So they want to pick fights with you. They want to go there with you. They want to do that deep, passionate, like love to hate you Mars dance in your seventh. Yeah. And so what can you do to resource this energy? As I mentioned, you are Saturn ruled and you're also Uranus ruled. And Uranus right now is during this transit at the 28th degree, and then it's at the 29th degree. And I'm only giving you degrees because I guess it feels like it's right. The 28th degree is the Cancer degree. And the 29th degree, which you see here, is the Leo degree, and Mars is still in Leo. It does move out of Leo into Virgo, which you can see here on June the 17th. But on June 14th, tomorrow, until that time, you're having to deal with the square. And you can still feel the square, even though Mars goes into Virgo, you're still feeling it. It's just not perfect. Because again, Uranus moves to 29 degrees of Taurus, which is also the energetic degree. So they're out of bounds, doing whatever they want to do. However, there's something really cool here because Saturn, like I mentioned, is your chart ruler in addition to Uranus. And Uranus at 29 degrees is being resourced by degree by Leo, and Mars is in Leo. So there's something heart-centered there. So to me, this suggests people acting crazy, la la la. But if you can resource truth, and I don't mean truth in the mind Aquarius where you love to live. I mean truth in terms of like what's at the heart of this. You know, can you tap in and ground into your heart? You know, what would it take for you to do that? Because it's also angular to you and it's very intimate, which is saying that if you can resource from the heart, you can hold this frequency or the container for this frequency to do less damage. You know, how much less damage? I don't know. That's really up to you. And it's up to like what I think your soul is trying to do in terms of the shakeup and what is trying to emerge from it. I mentioned Saturn was now in Aries, which is your chart ruler also in addition to Uranus. And so that's in your third house of siblings, cousins, aunts and uncles, your local neighborhood. And so it is at the onset of this Uranus Mars square, squaring Jupiter and Cancer at 1 degree. So again, this is more significant for you because you are Saturn ruled. And with Cancer now having this really important conversation in this larger Mars square Uranus energy, because when it first starts the square, Uranus is 28 degrees, which is the Cancer degree, and Jupiter's in Cancer, squaring Saturn, your chart ruler. So to me, it's telling me that you have to focus on, you know, how you hold space, how you stick up for yourself as it comes to your like local neighbors, you know, siblings, your community, that has a direct impact on what is ancestral that is springing up, that is coming to your attention, that boundaries now are being asked to be made in that seventh house space, whether for yourself or for the other people that you're dealing with. And again, this is either to prolong the relationship, whether in the family home, in the community, or to make some real big decisions as to whether that needs to shift. So like Scorpios, you may have a change of home, of relationship through this transit. The other aspect is the shifts that happen because of this, I want to say, big bang from these aspects. It has a larger story in terms of who you're being called to be for the world as a healing force that transmutes energy. Mars is the ruler of your 10th house, the career space, who you're called to be in the world, your reputation, your social standing, and you're always transmuting energy, and that's going to look different. And I think it's really interesting for Aquarius because we've moved into the age of Aquarius, right? So this is also shifting how the world is showing up differently. You know, how our collective heroes are being exalted, you know? We no longer have like Sagittarius freedom, you know? We're having something more intense, more visceral, more close to the edge of life and therefore death. And so it's almost like I continue to hold that. And so the boundary setting happening with one-to-one partners who are showing up very aggressively is going to have huge significance for your learning to be this Martian, but also healing and shamanistic force in how you show up in the world, how the world is calling you to be for the next century, you know? And it's also asking you to resource your feelings in the sixth house space to reconcile and or show up differently. Foremost, having your focus in that third house space. And that also gives you information for what can come in terms of the huge changes in the home, in the family, in your living situation, or in your internal landscape, where there has been so much energy that seems just like who you are, so fixed, that may have not been interrogated, apart from, you know, the surprising, shocking things that have been brought into that fourth house and who have been taken away with Uranus's transit or movement there for the past several years. And so Venus has also moved into that fourth house space. So there's some sweetness there. I think there's more capacity to talk nice, to have people who actually want to work it out or who have the capacity in the home or who are leaning into stability and peace and are willing to use that Uranus energy as an invitation or greater spaciousness to welcome more of you and who you're becoming, particularly with the moon moving through that first house, again, showing those more feelings and more things are coming up for you and they're being expressed. And so there's more of a container to hold that, though it is going to require you to still do that work in terms of filtering information differently, processing differently, being more ethical and being more responsible in, connecting that fourth house space to, again, a more serious and evolved, sober energy and role in your community. So around and about the home. Yeah. And it's asking foremost for boundaries to do that in that seventh house space. So how you manage the people trying you right now, okay? Trying you, like testing you. That's what I have for you, Aquarius. Sending you much love and good luck. Pisces. So last but not least, this is happening for you in your sixth house, where you have Mars transiting, helping you to get more on top of your day-to-day life. So you've been just going at it. You have been nonstop, tackling your creative projects, tackling the, you know, the bolts and the screws of all the projects. You've been cuddling and loving on your animals. Perhaps you've been more on their routine. If there's been health issues, you've been on it, making sure that they're getting their routine checks, they're getting like their medications and or they're getting their time outside in a particular kind of way. You've just been really ordered. You've just been really organized in terms of like how you are nurturing your creative projects and things that like you love and that you care for that essentially inform your routine and your health in your day-to-day life. Excuse me, my mouth is like, mm. Okay. And so you're having the Mars square from that sixth house to your third, where you have your brothers and sisters, your aunts and uncles, and the people who live in proximity to you. So like your neighbors, your neighborhood, things that exist in that space, etc. This is going to also include, as I mentioned before, like your car, social media, your text messages, also your emails, things of that nature. And so there's a shakeup. You might literally have a car break down and a new car show up for you. Like it's that sweet because you do have Venus in that third house space, and Venus exalts you. Venus lives in you. It loves to be in your sign. So where Venus goes, you can see like, oh, where can I like resource some extra goodness? For you, that's in that third house space. And so Venus is making a square to Aquarius, which rules your 12th house space. And so your dreams, your visualizations, also where you have things in your psyche that undo you. This can also be related to shores very, 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 very far away from those that you were born on. So you may live in a place very far from your birth. And so this means that perhaps, if you live in a foreign place, the moon's moving through that clubhouse space, you may be connecting with women who are having a challenge in their life that also therefore squares and shows you the challenge in terms of, them being maybe a neighbor and it being connected to, crisis in your neighborhood. That very much now shows up in your day-to-day and or is like asking you to shift your routine because now you have to like hold space for that person that really needs to hear you, really needs you to hear them and just hold and just be there to listen, even though like it's pressing and it's challenging something that you need to do for yourself because it's like your routine and it also needs to get done. And if it doesn't, it creates like a backlog of things that may then break something or make something challenging for you afterwards. But what I think is happening here, just using my example, because it's a really good one and I like it, is that the tension between that sixth house and the third house may actually be one and the same, where in the way that you're able to shift or integrate that third house material with what is being challenged in your own psyche as this person potentially this hypothetical person is sharing something with you, and the way that it actually may be mirroring something within yourself that shows maybe how you've been doing yourself that's showing up as this person if you live somewhere far away. Or it could be like awareness around how you've been undoing yourself. Maybe a friend is showing themselves as not quite a friend, right? And or this person, this woman who's talking to you, is revealing to you the way that maybe they haven't been loving themselves in a particular kind of way and haven't been being their own friend in the way that's mirroring something in you. And so you holding space is almost like you holding space for that part of yourself that now is coming in conflict with, hey, I've been doing all this work and perhaps it hasn't been unfolding in the way I want it to. And so you're getting the information that you need, Uranus in the third, like, oh, to now confront it. So Mars in the sixth. So you're seeing how it's leading to crisis that you have been working really hard, diligently to avoid, prevent, or address in your daily routines around your health, your work, your caretaking and stewardship of animals. And so you're receiving information that is allowing you to therefore integrate this into your day-to-day life, into grounding deeper in the heart for foremost yourself, where there may have been arrogance where that's them, not me. That's collapsing. And it's doing so with, again, something showing up in that deep psychological space and or another person that's reflecting that deep psychological space, particularly around women or a woman. And it is bringing a direct consequence, something coming in and something leaving potentially, or both, around in and around your day-to-day neighborhood. Again, something with your mode of transportation, how you're communicating, how you are framing your ideas, right? To either support healthy beliefs and or beliefs that even limit your ability to feel comfortable, to feel secure, to feel confident in yourself as someone who communicates particularly their love or their ability to facilitate pleasure or confidence in that third house space around with your siblings, again, with your online communications, your aunts, your uncles, your neighbors, right? And so what is showing up is also in conflict with this day-to-day life, right? And so this tug of war, despite like being planets or being signs that like peace, want to have things that they can count on, stability, whether it's stability of appreciation and just like knowing that they're loved, or the way that you're loved through your daily routines and feeling that life is good and for you. Clear, like that's Taurus, right? And day-to-day life helps to affirm that. And it builds confidence through being and the ability just to show up and be and know that everything's okay through the experience of just being in that light, in that experience of simplicity. And so this is now helping you to, again, rearrange, change, confront yourself through your routine. And so, you know, something with your sibling could be crazy, you know, from that 12th house space. And like perhaps, it's triggering something for you. And you get a new opportunity to see it differently. You get a new opportunity to receive something differently, but it may also be taking something away to do that work for you, to bring in that radically surprising, shocking thing that came out of the radically surprising, shocking event. I hope that makes sense. Anything else I want to say? Yes, your ruler is Jupiter. So Jupiter's in Cancer now. in the fifth house space. So it's expanding matters of the heart, matters with your children, expanding your children. Literally, you could be having another baby, right? And whether you're whatever gender you identify as, you could be having another baby, okay? And that's expanding for you now. And it's asking you to truly know that you are allowed to exist and you belong and you belong and you exist on purpose. And so the changes that you're being invited to make under this transit through this shocking, revealing surprise uh, has long-term influence and implications for now, which you're able to grow more and do so in a way that deeply honors the feminine as sacred in your creations and your creativities. And of course, as your chart ruler, this is your focus. And this is what feeds you and truly allows you to, be a traveler in the world, to truly expand and move yourself past your horizons with Jupiter also ruling that 10th house space, right? And yeah, I like to think of this as like being a believer in the world and just like also supporting the container of your worldly affairs to grow and expand that helps others to truly believe that their dreams are possible. Yeah, you're like the embodiment. And it's like, I feel like Pisces are being called to be the new celebrities. Like you're going to embody what trust looks like, but foremost by doing that trust for yourself, but through embodiment. That's key. And that is what is shaking up. What is embodied is shaking up, shaking out. And then you got to do the work to integrate it to allow something different. Okay, so that is what I have for you, dear Pisces. Sending you so much love and good luck. So don't forget, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And also share your comments below about how you see this transit unfolding for you. And of course, please share this with your friends, anyone you think that would also benefit from this information. And don't forget, if you're interested in learning astrology alongside me as a co-learner and creator, comment that below as well so I can send you more details about this space that is coming soon. Wishing you so much love. Take care of yourselves, and I'll be back. Ciao.